For Creamer Media's Polity, I'm Tabi Madiba. Joining me today is retired attorney and author Rupert Smith, here to discuss his book, Still a Few Sons. Welcome, Rupert.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
Can you briefly tell us what this book is about?
This book is a whodunit. It is a mystery. It takes place on a coal mine in Middelburg, and it's a fictional coal mine in a fictional town, but with characters who are real, because I used to be on the coal mines. And basically the story, just the introduction of the story, is one morning when people go on shift, they find a young man who's been caught in a conveyor belt and has been killed. And they don't know what happened to him. And the internal legal advisor at the mine is tasked with defending the mine in the inquiry which the mine inspectorate will have about the fatality on the mine. And he starts looking to try to find out what happened, and that's the story. From there on, it unfolds.
Talk to us about the main character and where the inspiration for him came from.
Well, the main character, loosely speaking, is me. The main character, Stephen Wakefield, or the young man who was killed. There are two main characters. There is the protagonist, is Stephen Wakefield. He is an old lawyer who is the group legal advisor of the company where he works, and that's loosely based around myself, because it is what I talk about in the book are my own experiences, both in legal practice and subsequently as the member of an executive team at a coal mine, also in Middelburg. The other main character is the pivotal counterpart to Stephen Wakefield, is the young man who was murdered. And he's entirely fictional, but not quite entirely fictional, because while I was at the coal mine, one morning we did find a young man who was caught in the conveyor belt. These conveyor belts are enormous. This thing goes for 20 kilometers and it carries thousands of tons of coal. And one morning we did find a young man who'd been crushed, and we tried to find out what happened to him.
So the character of Stephen Wakefield, as the in-house lawyer and director of the company, was based on yourself?
Mostly, yeah, mostly.
Okay. And can you tell us about the death of Mpho Mamela, which happens with a conveyor belt? Was this an actual accident that took place, which you then wrote about?
Yes, it is. As I've just said to you, it is one morning when people came on shift, they found a young man who'd been caught by the conveyor belt. You know, if you think about a mine, it's an exceptionally dangerous place. I mean, there are all sorts of things just waiting to injure you. And one of the things that looks benign, it doesn't look dangerous at all, is the conveyor belt, because it's just things that are going by and it looks like they're going by quite slowly. But it's one of the most dangerous things on the mine, because if it catches you, you've got no chance to stop it, you can't get away, and it's going faster than you think. So the incident that kicks off the book is a real incident. It is based on a fatality that was at the coal mine while I was working there.
Oh, okay. And in your book, the character of Frankie said he stole the money from the company because his family was poor and needed the money. So do you think many criminals in South Africa have the same experience?
That's the wrong word. They're not criminals. They're definitely not criminals. The point about this book is that Frankie tried to steal a few cents, and they sent him to jail. And there is somebody who is a criminal. He tried to steal a few millions, and they put him in charge. That's where the point of the book comes. Steal a few cents, they put you in jail. Steal a few millions, they put you in charge. Frankie's not a criminal. Frankie is a young man, and you know, it's very close to my heart because I've dealt with this a lot. There are a lot of children, I'm allowed to say children because I'm in my 60s now, but a lot of young children who walk the same path as Frankie. They come from terribly disadvantaged backgrounds, and their families and their whole extended families, they scrimp and save to put these children through school and then through university, and it is deprivation after deprivation. And then one day when that kid gets a job, like Frankie did, he became an accountant, and he got a job in the accountancy office at the mine. Then what happens is his entire family is reliant on him for support. And they ask him for all sorts of things, not because they're bad people, but because they have no other means of support. So what happens is somebody is ill and he has to pay for medicine, or there's a funeral and he has to pay for the funeral, or there is somebody, his mother was old, he had to support her, or his sister wanted to go to university. You know, it's so much a reality that there's an expression for it, as they call it the black tax. You will have heard that expression. And it's a very real thing, and these poor children get themselves into trouble. And that's what happened to Frankie, is he was an honest man, he's a good man. And he tried to steal because he didn't know how else to pay for all these people who had a legitimate call on his resources, because they're the ones who got him where he was. So Frankie is not a criminal, definitely not. Frankie is one of the good news stories in the book.
And talking about the steal a few cents and they put you in jail, but steal a few millions, they put you in charge. Were you thinking about Fyodor Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment?
Well, you know, when I was a young man at university, I did a course in Russian. So I have read Crime and Punishment with Raskolnikov in his terrible yellow room. But no, I wasn't really thinking of that, because what Raskolnikov was talking about was whether he had the right to kill somebody because he needed their money. But that's not really what I'm talking about. I'm talking about something slightly different. And it is this. In South Africa, we are very vigilant on pursuing petty criminals. So my advice to you is never go steal the petty cash box, because you'll be in jail before you can blink. But if you become a really heavyweight criminal and you steal millions, nothing happens to you. You know the story. I can list them. I can sit here and list for you a whole bunch of people who have stolen hundreds of millions, if not more than that, and they're not being prosecuted. But the poor guy who steals 750 rand because he needs to pay for his mother's medicine, he's the guy who goes to jail. And that's the complaint in the book. The book, not a complaint, it is the juxtaposition. As I say, on the one hand, there are these people who really have no alternative. That's why they get into, they know it's wrong, but there's not really much they can do. On the other hand, there are the people who know it's wrong. They've got lots of time to think about it and to prepare properly, and they steal gazillions of rands. Nothing happens to them.
And you have 30 years of experience in the mining industry. Was this a smooth writing process because of this?
Well, you know, what I did before I was in the mining industry, I was a practicing attorney. And what attorneys do all day is they sit in a room and they write. And they write and they write and they write. So I have destroyed a little forest with all the paper I've written in my life. So to write for me is very easy. And what I was doing in this book is I was writing about the things that I know, both from practice and from having been in the coal mining industry. So none of this happened really. This is all a fictional cobbling together of archetypes from the industry and from life generally. Now, a lot of these things almost happened, but they didn't all happen in the same place. And as I say, I made up the place. There isn't a place called Crosby. It's where I put the action in the town of Crosby. There isn't a place. And, you know, and I've said the mine is, you know, that's a fictional mine. No, it doesn't really exist. But all of these things have happened, and the backdrop against which I set it, the South African backdrop, that's there. This thing about black tax, that's there. That's central to my book, is I'm saying you must understand. You mustn't just walk around and say, oh, these people, as soon as they get a job, they steal. That's the wrong way to see it, because these are honest, hardworking kids who are in such a different and compromised position that you must look with understanding at what happens to them, and you must feel sad for them. That's the point.
And you highlight mine safety quite significantly in your book. So do you think mines today are doing enough when it comes to safety, as we always hear of fatalities in the mines?
Yeah, well, it depends which mine. There are the honest miners, the serious miners take it very seriously. So if you work on a mine, there is a mantra that people sing over and over. They say it is safety, tons, and cost. That's what they say all the time. So safety first, you got to be safe. The second thing, tons, how many tons of rock are you going to move? And the third thing is the costs, the overheads that steal up like a thief in the night. That's what you got to worry about. Safety is the first thing. There is a constant initiative, a constant drive at all of the responsible mines to be safe, to be safe, to be safe. And what happens, it's a real pain if you work there, because you have to wear this hat and you're not allowed to walk the shortcut. You must go the long way around and you must wear those shoes, and it's a real pain. So people take shortcuts, and as soon as they take shortcuts, there's an injury. So there is a constant drive towards safety in the responsible mines. I also, like you, read in the newspaper about mining accidents that happen, and sometimes when I look at what has happened, I think that that shouldn't really have happened. You know, I'm not saying any particular incident now, but often when I look at the details of an accident, it shouldn't have happened, and at the responsible international mining houses, it's unlikely to happen.
And lastly, you also highlight corruption and fraud in the mining industry. How rampant is it really?
It's like in South Africa. South Africa, the national pastime, the national sport is corruption. We've just had a president who stole billions of rands. You know, the president. And we've had, you know, I mean, I don't need to tell you, these people are famous for stealing. We've just recently had the collapse of a major corporate on the stock market, where there are hundreds of billions of rands missing. And a lot of that kind of stuff is simply fraud and corruption. It's simply stealing. The reason for that doesn't have the excuse that Frankie has, because Frankie doesn't know what to do. He's trying to support his family to help them get through. But these are just people who want the money in their pocket. And so in the mining industry, of course, there's fraud. But in the whole of South Africa, there's fraud and corruption.
Thanks very much for your time.
Pleasure.
That was retired attorney and author Rupert Smith speaking to Creamer Media's Polity about his book, Still a Few Cents.